Well, let's talk about sellers, guys, because we have to wrap this up. But this new survey came out that said 90% of homeowners are worried about selling. Now, before we get into the conversation part, I want to go back and remind everybody, if you missed our episode 101, in episode 101, we talked about the survey that came out then, which said 48% considered selling in the next year, and
that's right,
36% said they'll sell in 2 to 3 years. So you have over 80% of people saying they're going to sell in the next 1 to 3 years, and now you have 90% saying they're worried about selling. Now, my question is this just semantics? Because this article is saying worried about selling, and the other one is saying considering selling. Is this just a war of words, or are we having this massive clash of confusion about what sellers are actually trying to do?
I don't think it's confusion. I just think an article has to pinpoint whatever their discussion topic's going to be. Here, I don't think it's saying that. What it's really, the way I interpret it is 90% of people are considering selling, but they're fearful. Right? What's the outcome going to be? And I like that it breaks everything down in percentages, because it is. Because you know what? I would love to sell. Not a problem, because I'm going to get a lot of bang for my buck right now. But my fear is, what if I don't find that other property that's going to suit my needs, and then I'm just going to have a higher payment? So I kind of see both views on the article. You know?
Yeah, I totally understand that, because they did, of these 1,000 people surveyed, they did kind of segment what their responses were and for why stress of sale was the top reason, 42%. High cost of selling was number 2 at 40%. I thought, honestly, it would be this next one, inability to afford a new home.
Yeah.
I thought that would be the number one reason.
Yeah.
Because commonly what we see, or what we're told, or what we overhear, and then what we read online is people don't want to sell because they want to break from their current rate. And then the cost of moving to the new place would be potentially higher, even if they have the same loan amount. Yeah. They could take their equity and dump that as down payment, but because of the rate, their cost would be higher. So I honestly thought this would be the number one reason, and it's not. It's the third.
It's crazy, right?
And look how the top one is just the stress. So it's literally just the thought. The thought of having to put my house, taking the action, actually doing it, that in itself is the biggest obstacle.
And you know, there's just so much there's just so much information out there that creates a lot of confusion to people, right? You got the Zillows, Open Doors, you got all these companies that all buy your house for top dollar, and they do. But what people don't know is that these companies, if you open their actual net sheet, you're going to see how much they take.
Yeah.
You know, I just had a client that actually put it through Open Door, and they were selling in Poway for 2.2. I can't disclose names, but they charged over $140,000 just in fees. So they thought they were going to walk away for a certain amount, but they were but they need it. They ended up buying another homes elsewhere, and their business, they also needed help there, and they only owed $600 and change. So they're we're just going to take the L and move forward.
Whoa.
You know, the property got just back in escrow for 2.2.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
really?
yeah. So it's all in the net sheet. It's all in you got to see the information, because a lot of times the sellers, it depends where your need is at. It depends what your situation, financially is at. And sometimes we just need to cut our losses and move on, and that was this case. So I just think there's a lot of these platforms out there that are giving so much information to people. It's am I making the right choice? Am I using the right person? Am I pricing it right? It's just a lot. It gets overwhelming unless you have the proper dynasty team that you feel very confident and it's been vetted, that they're going to take you to that next stage in life.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So they had actually sold it to Open Door $2.2 million, and it's now back on the market at the same price.
At the same price, but they ended up buying it for 1.8 and change, and it cost them $140,000.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So on the flip side of that, I read right here that 43%, confidence will come back for selling when 43% people follow a trusted real estate agent. So that trust factor is a huge thing, and it makes sense because it's in a tough market, you don't want to go with just anybody. Yeah. In 2020, it was easy to just go with anybody, but now in a tough market, you actually need proven results, proven strategies, and things that are actually going to work. Not just hey, I'm going to put the house, hope that it gets exposure. But the next one was 45% if they already had a secured home. Basically, they started shopping before they even sold their house and said, hey, I found the house. Now I have the confidence that I have something I want, so I can't put my house on the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one that I want to read it here is, one of the most significant fears for current homeowners is being forced to accept a lower than expected offer, with 85% of respondents saying they have some level of concern about being pressured into a low deal. You know, I really think right now, being that this article is being written during these times where interest rates are, higher, and affordability, 2025 has been its worst, in X amount of years. I think it was like 24, 30 years.
We said the worst in 23. We said the worst in 24. Now it's the worst of the worst of those.
Correct. And again, we've already started at its lowest sales of homes. This is like going into the fourth consecutive year. You know what I mean? And so I think people don't understand. It's not that it's a lowball offer. It's just the current market condition of what's being presented to you. So for instance, I'm going to use that example of Poway. The home was at 2.2 mil. Home was listed back in October, didn't have any activity, had people going in, but no offers. So is your home really worth that 2.2?
Yeah, fair point.
But you're thinking that might be a low offer just because the other home sold for 2.2 and yours happens to be larger. We don't know how it really looks inside or how people are looking at that property.
Yeah.
So I think it brings a misconception to people when you have higher comparables in the area. You may think it compares in the square footage, bedroom and bath count, but a lot of times it just doesn't conform to how that person's going to feel emotionally, that attachment to that property.
Yeah.
And remember, the value comes from a buyer wanting to present an offer for that. So if you don't, even if there's comparables in there and people aren't putting an offer, then that's not the right purchase price.
It's a very emotional and biased opinion. It's like, my kids are the cutest.
Oh, yeah. Today we had a great guest, actually.
Yeah.
And he was telling us he was an 18-month escrow on that castle that you brought up.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. Some people, he had nobody wanting to buy at that price. And then all of a sudden, when it fell out of escrow, the month later, he had 4 offers. And then he has another client right now that's looking for the same thing, but you can't replicate a castle, right?
No, you can't. And the crazy thing is that maybe that $10, $20, $30, or $40,000 drop, that's somebody's magic number. Maybe they like $10,000 lower. Okay, now I could actually go in. Whatever it might be, it might just make a little bit difference if you drop the price.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I'm not going to afford it.
Yeah. So my advice is, don't stress on what you're not going to get. Just stress on what's your bottom line and focus on that. And if you're able to get that, good. And if you're not, guess what? You have a roof over your head.
Yeah. And unless you need to sell, it's okay to take your house off the market. Like if it doesn't work out the way you want, just don't list it anymore. Take it off the market.
And then
it's okay.
The other thing is get
okay.
feedback, right? Like get the feedback. Have the person who's working and selling your home obtain feedback. Reach out to the people that came and say, well, what can I do different? And maybe you take it off for a little minute, for a few months, and then you put it back on again, and let's just wait it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot here, and it doesn't always just distill to only the personal agency of the person. I mean, it does because it's their house. But my point is, there's the variety of reasons they may want to sell are very personal. They can be general in a survey, and that's fine. But again, it's still a survey. I don't know how many of these people are actually going to go and sell this year or not, because they're just giving answers to a question. The consequence of me answering the question is just I answered the question.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm committed to whatever the answer I gave is either.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be, before we cut from this one, I just want to make sure I mentioned something that I thought was interesting, because for the aforementioned nerdness that you guys like to call
Professor
me,
X.
is the national median of home sales, like the price, the time it takes to sell homes. So the national median is 37 days. So fastest selling and slowest selling homes, the median is 37 days. The slowest 10 cities have a median sales listing time frame of 57 days. And then the quickest, it's 21 days. Which is, I mean, there's a huge, like a month and a half difference between those two numbers almost. Yeah. That's crazy. So, if you're in one of these areas that has a really slow overall selling time, just be ready. These cities were Miami, Austin, Jacksonville, San Antonio, Birmingham, Alabama, Nashville, Pittsburgh, New York City, Phoenix, and Chicago. If you are a buyer in one of the fastest selling areas get approved right away, and then be on it the second those houses come on the market. That's going to be Grand Rapids, Michigan, Buffalo, New York, Seattle, San Jose, Richmond, Virginia, Boston, Indianapolis, Sacramento, San Diego, and Fresno, California.
Oh, dude, I saw Fresno. I was trying to do all the California
15
ones.
days. Look at that.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Seattle, 15 days. Grand Rapids, Michigan, 13 days.
That's kind of
overall fastest in the entire country is Grand Rapids, Michigan. What's going on in Michigan, guys? I feel like we got to figure that out. I got to do more notes. I have no idea what's going on in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
I'm gonna take a guess. It's gonna be there's not a lot of inventory there.
Well, yeah, probably.
There's not a lot of inventory.
Yeah,
And
or people are snapping them up for cash because you can get them cash out there. It could be a lot of investors.
Yeah, and New York, what I'm seeing in New York City, 55 days. I also feel confident it's just taking longer. It's because of the
bureaucracy, purchase price, bureaucracy. There's some places that just take longer to close.
But all the other ones like Miami, Austin, we already know they've experienced an uptick on their inventory. I want to say like Texas was like 44% more inventory than last year. So, Florida, same thing. Things are happening.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see more people saying, okay, I was in Cali. I got out, I was thinking it was pretty bad over there. I'm going to go back.
You're probably right. That there's a really strong correlation between inventory and the days on market, where a tighter market's going to have fewer days. And of course, a market that's flooded with inventory is going to have more. I'm curious to see what happens with Washington, D.C. as we get into like April and May. I saw that map of like all those listings that popped up and I was like, whoa, crazy inventory spike in January. So I'm not going to dig into that at all, but I'm going to keep one eye on that one. So, guys, tell me, what was the favorite part of the show today for you, Brian?